Go.
Joining us tonight, John Solomon, award-winning investigative reporter, editor-in-chief of Just the News. John, good to have you with us. A lot to talk about tonight, the unmasking of General Flynn. Who could have imagined where we are tonight, that Judge Sullivan would both encourage a vigorous prosecution from a retired left-wing anti-Trump judge who just had an op-ed published 2 days ago, 3 days ago now, and who is being asked to decide whether or not they should go after General Flynn for perjury. This is not only unconscionable, but it is the height of politically corrupt arrogance.
Yeah, everyone I've talked to today has been exasperated by the judge's conduct. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of show for an inevitable conclusion. At the end of the day, these charges are going to be dismissed against General Flynn because the law requires it. When both parties go in as they do in this case, and when there is a preponderance of evidence, as there is in this case, of wrongdoing, the courts have consistently allowed a vacation or vacating of a conviction like this. It's just going to extend the drama a little longer, but it's going to inevitably end up, whether it's at the Supreme Court, the appellate court, or the district court, it's going to end up getting the charges are going to be dismissed.
There is one person in Congress, and that's Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, who seems to have both the command of the levers in this particular moment with the Judiciary Committee, who has the power to really investigate the investigators, as he promised he would do almost a year and a half ago, but has done nothing. What the president is encouraging him to call former President Obama. Why is Graham doing everything in his power, it seems, to simply ignore his responsibilities, to spew nonsense and blather, seeming at one point to support the president, at the next to support unknown figures in the deep state, or perhaps even amongst the Democrats? It is quite an act that he is putting on. It is not a performance.
Yeah, listen, I think there's some good news for those of us who've wanted transparency and accountability, which is finally, and I do say finally, Lindsey Graham has scheduled a hearing to dig into these very serious issues. I know his investigative staff very well. They're very competent. They've been working very hard behind the scenes. They're going to have some big revelations that are not yet public that will move this narrative along and show just how far-reaching the corruption inside the bureaucracy was. As for the issue of President Obama, there's going to come a moment after that first evidence is laid out in his hearings where people are going to obviously say, hey, this started at the top with President Obama. And then I think Lindsey Graham will have to face the music of his own evidence and decide what he's going to do. And I think that moment may, when the evidence is all out there, there'll be an even more poignant question to the chairman. Why aren't you talking to President Obama? And I think, let's see what the evidence comes out. But keep in mind, over the last few months, there's been a lot of information taken from the National Archives, from the Obama administration. They lay out a very powerful case. We're going to begin to see that evidence over the next 3-4 weeks. And all I can say from what I know from my reporting is buckle your seatbelt.
Well, seatbelts are buckled. I've been in anticipation for so many years now, along with most of the country, that what is in prospect is not quite as bright and vivid as it once was. But I take your counsel, John, and we will remain anticipatory in posture. John, thanks so much. John Solomon, Just the News.